All right, welcome everyone to the Argo Flux meeting. It is the 18th of February. Yeah, I think Alex, you just wanted to give an update.
Right. So we finally made some more visible progress on the GitOps engine code changes. So right now we have two branches, one in Argo, one in Flux. And Flux version, the branch in Flux basically references one folder from Argo, which is GitOps engine. And we splitted the work. So I'm keep working on Argo side and Fons is working on integration of engine in Flux. And as far as I know from Fons, last week, basically, he completed the happy path at least. And now all the integration tests in Flux are working. And we found one bug was fixed. And today he requested an improvement, basically to support, I guess, some edge case. And I'm going to do it. So we'll make these changes on Argo side and Fons will integrate these changes into Flux. And because we kind of feeling optimistic, we decided to go ahead and as part of the same pull request, we will resolve another issue. So as we mentioned, Argo will introduce some features like pre-sync posting hooks into Flux, but these features are driven by or controlled by annotations. And these annotations right now Argo specific. We want to make it configurable so user can use Flux users could use flux.io as a prefix for annotation in Flux, and Argo users could keep using Argo roche.io as a prefix. So basically, on my side, I'm working on an improvement which Fons requested and configurable annotations, and Fons are waiting for these two changes to integrate them into Flux. And yeah, this is it. That's pretty much my update.
Okay, I see a few review on the big PR 3066. I see a few comments from Janfis.
Yes.
Were you able to hit up Jesse for some feedback on that?
I'm still waiting for Jesse to start looking at it.
Okay.
And basically, I know that so Janfis, his name is Jan. Yeah, he requested come up with he requested to come up with a better name for a package. I mean, right now there is a package called
Argo IO.
IO. Yeah, I agree with him, and I feel like we spoke offline and we both could not come up with a better name.
Is that, is that something that he wants to hold up this PR for though?
No. He just, he was trying to help. Yeah, he tried to give like early review.
Right. Yeah, since there's 240 files changed, it's a little difficult to do the review, but okay. Do you expect then to have a chat with Jesse this week, or are you
admittedly
from other than Jesse people?
I would admittedly. I mean, I really want to get Jesse's review. He's on vacation this week. That's why he won't be able to give it. But I feel like I will request code review from Jan. And Fons is also doing code review. So I'm waiting. Basically, right now I'm only waiting for review comments from Fons because he wanted to give feedback for at least externally facing parts. Like if he doesn't like some
interfaces. Yeah.
Yes, that's because he should be. Because he's working on the integration of Flux, he already have deep knowledge of what this interface is supposed to do, and I'm sure he has comments about method names and missing comments and things like that. Yeah, and I feel like he was just busy with basically integrating it first and fixing tests, and next step is to give that feedback.
Okay.
And he already gave, like, he found a bug and he found this missing the basically a feature request, and I'm doing this. So I consider it as basically it's already review comments. Yeah.
Okay. Hide, anything to add on that? Does that meet your understanding of where Alex and Fonz were at with the GitOps Engine 3066 pull request?
I was late due to an internal meeting, and I think it pretty much matched what Fonz just told me in the internal meeting. So yeah,
okay.
We are aligned.
Okay, cool. That's good to hear. Okay, thanks, Alex. Appreciate the update. All right, so maybe Cornelia, maybe we can chat a little bit about some of the conversations that we've had over the past couple weeks with regards to getting sort of like an official roadmap and product plan together for Argo Flux. Certainly, I don't want anyone to feel like we're leaving people out or doing this behind the scenes. Really, the only reason we've had private conversations is to just kind of share our thoughts about sort of a long-term vision and merging of a user experience, but there hasn't been any outward-facing visibility to our conversations. So I'd like to change that up, so we have a little more transparency to folks in the community.
Yep. So I'll chime in. Hello, everyone. I know that there's some of you I haven't met. Just by way of introduction, I've recently joined Weaveworks as CTO at the beginning of the year, so right at the beginning of January. So what to add to what Jay has said, I'm delighted with all the progress that the team has been making in terms of the GitOps engine, what Alex and Hide and Fonz have been working on, and I'm really thrilled to hear about the merging into both the projects. Now, both the projects is exactly the thing that I want to drill in on here, and that is that I actually believe that the GitOps engine, being really the core, is incredibly key. And getting it integrated into the two separate projects is a great first start. But ultimately, my feeling, and I believe other people's feelings, are that we are successful when we bring these two projects together rather than having two separate projects. And how we go about doing that is what Jay is referring to, is how we start to think of this from a strategic perspective and say, if ultimately our goal is to have a single community, then how do we do that beyond what we're doing as this first step? And so I would invite anybody who's on the call or anybody who's listening to the recording after the fact to please come join us through whatever means, Slack channels, email, joining these meetings, because this is the area that we're focusing on now, is really to start drawing together communities, single project, all of that.
So I wrote down, hopefully capturing what you just said. I would like to note, though, just for the record, I'm aware that the term user experience is probably terrible. I don't really know of a better phrase to sort of capture what I'm talking about when I say user experience. It's more than like just the user interface. It's a combination of the public API and models that we use to describe various concepts in each of the projects. It's a combination of the interfaces, whether it's CLI, UI, or fully automated. And it's also just, I don't know, an aspect of community management as well, and how documentation structured and all that kind of stuff. It's the whole thing. So when I say user experience, I'm not being specific about like a GUI versus a CLI or something like that. It's just the whole shebang.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And we've seen there's prior art in this type of a thing. One of those examples is things like Open Tracing and Open Census, which were two separate projects that had some overlap, that came together into Open Telemetry to serve the community better. And so really the way that I like to think about this effort that we're going through here is not about code reuse, but really it's that we've got two GitOps leaders, two GitOps leading projects, Flux and Argo CD. And boy, wouldn't it be great if we had a single project that drew together all of the capabilities from both of those. And so, yes, I just want to reemphasize, I want to do a +1 pile onto that. This is not just about code reuse. It's not just about UX in terms of, what are the commands and those types of things. But it's also community and those things. So I believe, for example, that we will be successful, not necessarily if we keep, and in fact, I don't think it'll be possible for us to keep backward compatibility to both of those. And in fact, I feel that should be an anti-goal. But that what we do in the end is we have a project that provides a union of the capabilities that we can get across those two different projects. What are two different projects today, but that we have a single project that has a more comprehensive set of capabilities.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions on that? I mean, it's a fairly fundamental important thing that, instead of making Argo CD have some functionality that Flux CD has, and making Flux CD have functionality that Argo CD has, instead it's thinking like, how can like a single Argo Flux product meet all sorts of different use cases and get rid of the bifurcation that currently
right. I'll share with you all anecdotally that when I first started coming up to speed on this and I heard Argo Flux, the way that I saw it in my head was Argo/Flux. And I want to move away from Argo/Flux, and I want to move toward Argo Flux, Argo space Flux. It's one thing. It's not Argo versus Flux, Argo this, Flux that. It is Argo Flux. It's one thing.
Right. And just the purpose of Argo Flux being to amplify GitOps best practices and facilitate the automation and declarative application management fundamentals of GitOps. Right.
Yeah. That's beautifully put. Amplify GitOps best practices. Wrote that down.
All right, cool. So I'll quickly go over progress that I've made on my action items from last time, and that's virtually nothing. So again, I'm a completely useless person. I'm sorry, I have not been able to get my action items completed, so I'll just take them on for next time as well. Let's see, there was one action item that wasn't assigned to me, I think.
Are the action items in the document? Please forgive me for being
yeah, they're sort of mixed into the agenda notes.
Okay.
So a review of actions from last time.
Okay.
There we go. I don't know, Daniel, did you have a chance to look at triaging stuff to get some of that responsibility off of Alex's shoulders?
No, I mean, you mentioned me on this the last time, and I thought we would talk about it first sometime, and I was busy with a million other things.
Meetings and meetings. Yeah. I totally understand.
For one, yes.
Okay. Anything else anyone would like to discuss? Let's just open it up.
So kind of a, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Cade.
So kind of a dumb user question, but I haven't deployed Argo or Flux before. When I'm looking at this and I see this GitOps engine that combines the functionality, or I guess that's kind of a rudimentary term for it, but I'm under the impression that I have to deploy 3 different sets of Kubernetes resources, one for GitOps engine, one for Argo, and one for Flux. After looking more into the repository, I see that it's more so just deploying the 2 products, Argo and Flux, with a special GitOps branch. Is that correct?
Actually, right now, you don't deploy both.
Okay.
You would deploy one or the other. But our previous conversation that Cornelia and I were kicking off was obviously our long-term vision is to have a single thing. But right now, the GitOps engine is all of the sort of initial common pieces of functionality that are being integrated as this sort of like back-end implementation engine for Kubernetes and Git syncing. And they're being integrated into Flux CD and Argo CD. So there's 2 branches of source code, one in Argo CD that Alex has been working on, and one in Flux CD that Fons and Hida have been working on. And those 2 branches essentially replace parts of either Flux CD or Argo CD with this GitOps engine to basically be the engine of doing the syncing type of behavior. So yeah, at this point, GitOps engine is more of like a shared library of code, but it's would that be a fair statement, Alex and Hide?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a shared code, plus it also kind of introduces some shared interface in form of annotations. So
right. But the idea right now is that GitOps engine is kind of hidden, right? It's kind of behind the scenes. Argo CD and Flux CD remain the 2 things that you have a choice, right, between either installing Flux CD or installing Argo CD. Long term, our goal obviously is to have a single Argo Flux product that would use GitOps engine and the functionality that it entails, but would have a single user experience. So that's probably goes to the point that we need. Well, once these 2 branches are stabilized and merged into the main line, then we really need to have some tutorials that show setting up Flux CD and setting up Argo CD with the GitOps engine integrations for them. So I'm assuming that the installation and configuration would be very similar, if not identical, to the Argo CD and Flux CD installation experiences that currently exist, with maybe a different image tag or version. But really, I think part of the goal, and back me up or tell me if I'm wrong, Alex, but part of the goal for GitOps engine was to keep the installation experience for both identical, not mess with that as much as possible.
Yes, it basically just either user should not see any difference at all. It should be just the same. But internally, it helps us to get rid of duplicated code.
You basically technically make sure that we are on the same page, or that both applications work in the same way, so that once we move to the next phase, there will be no surprises in how it operates or how it works, because they basically already make use of the same engine. Yeah. That's the main goal of the project.
That's a great way of describing it, Hide. The purpose of this initial phase of having a Flux CD and Argo CD branch that features GitOps engine is to ensure that we don't have any surprises for each of the user communities as we move long term into a single unified product. That's a really, really good way of putting it.
I like that, and I'll add that to me, it seems like what we've done is we are validating the hypothesis that these things are doing very, very similar things.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So.
So Caden, I don't know if that answers your question, but yes, following the installation instructions for either Flux CD or Argo CD should pretty much work the same once these GitOps engine branches are merged into the main lines.
Okay, awesome. That was a great answer, guys. Thank you all.
Sorry if it's a little complicated right now. We are working to simplify this.
You're good. No worries, guys. Thank you.
All right. So anybody else got anything in this open section? I will mention that at KubeCon EU, which is what, about 6 weeks away, six or 7 weeks away, AWS is doing a big recruiting and hiring event featuring Argo Flux. So I'll just, market our recruiting event in the Argo Flux Dev meeting. But if you're interested in any of the positions that AWS and the EKS team have open to work on Argo Flux and all sorts of other cool open source projects, please get in touch with me. Thanks. All right, Mario, Keith, anything you wanted to bring up? Any use cases or feedback you wanted to provide?
Nothing much on my side. I agree that having a single tool will be better for the community as well. Other than that, I agree much well with everything you said already.
Cool.
Yeah, I definitely want to second that. And I kind of joined again this week to kind of see what the plans were going forward in merging the two projects. And you guys have definitely answered that. I do want to mention, based on the previous meeting, I did have a chance to kind of look at Argo's side and did find it very intriguing as well. I think the automation around Argo and some of the flexibility is really nice. Having a clean CLI tool to integrate or to interact with Argo in general is really nice. And also being able to configure different clusters for the deployments as well is also a great feature of that.
With one installation of Argo CD as opposed to multiple installations of Flux CD, right?
Exactly, yeah. On the other hand, with Flux, it is so nice and lightweight to have it just like kind of seated, in a Kubernetes cluster like that and just kind of spun up. So I would like to be able to, I guess with my feedback, I just want to try to iterate that if we could encapsulate those two features of the final product, that would be amazing.
I'm really glad you brought that up. So what we've actually been, we're totally aware that these are both use cases, but personally, I've been struggling with a pithy phrase to describe those use cases. In the past, I know that like Mukalika and I, we've called this multi-tenant or like multi-cluster. For the, Argo CD can support multiple target Kubernetes destinations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But multi-tenant really isn't the proper way of describing that. And multi-cluster just seems like, I don't know, just wrong. I don't know if you've got any recommendations for like, how do we talk about that particular use case in a quick way? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd probably have to sit and think on that a little bit, but I definitely understand what you're getting at there. Yeah.
For the Flux CD focused use case that you described earlier, I tend to refer to that as the no human interaction experience.
Yeah.
Like basically, you just set it up and just Flux just does its thing. So when I think about use cases for Argo Flux, the way I think of that particular user experience is just like a fully automated, no hands-on type of experience, which obviously is very different from, say, a centralized IT team, which wants to have very fine-grained control over RBAC and different destination clusters and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're obviously trying to meet all of these use cases with the end product vision, but sometimes we struggle to have a nice, easy way of describing what those use cases are.
Yeah. I'm not going to suggest that this describes the different use cases, but the way that I think about that particular topic is that there needs to be support for a variety of different deployment topologies. Sure. Because having independent daemons per, reconciliation loops per cluster is very valuable in certain use cases like edge use cases. And then again, there's also tremendous value in supporting more of a centralized thing. And by the way, centralized control does not imply centralized deployment topologies.
Sure.
So that's important as well. So I think that as we start to craft what's the strategic roadmap for the joint project, I think support for multiple deployment topologies is on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. From a terminology perspective, here's something. So recently I was working with Dan from Crossplane and reviewing a blog post that he was putting together on GitOps concepts and stuff like that. And they use the term control cluster, where I've previously heard the term bootstrapping cluster, right? For a cluster that essentially is responsible for creating other Kubernetes clusters via whether it's a declarative model or whether it's an imperative model. What do people generally refer to that thing as? Bootstrapping cluster, control cluster, something else? I'm curious. Not everyone at once, please.
So those feel very different to me.
Okay, how so?
So a bootstrapping cluster, okay, maybe not a bootstrapping cluster. So for example, one of the ways that you can envision using Flux, or one of the deployment topologies, sorry, I just did exactly what I don't want to do. One of the ways that you can envision having supporting one of those deployment topologies is where a cluster bootstraps itself, but then the control cluster isn't just about bootstrapping. So I'm not sure that bootstrapping and provisioning are the same thing.
So you differentiate between the initial setup of a cluster and the ongoing maintenance of it, and that's how you would refer to like bootstrapping versus control?
Yeah, there's definitely an element of that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in cluster API, upstream, they generally refer to the Kubernetes cluster that can be used to spawn other Kubernetes clusters or machine sets as the bootstrapping cluster. But then I don't think there's really a differentiation between whether after initial bootstrapping that cluster couldn't also configure and maintain the other cluster's configuration. But yeah, I'm curious whether people what terminology people use for this, because I'm putting it into our Argo Flux use cases and want a shared set of semantics that we can use for it.
I have seen the term mom cluster being used.
Mom cluster?
Yeah.
Mom cluster.
I like it.
Yeah, I was thinking also too, like when I hear some of that, it's more of like a management cluster, but that could also be very vague.
Yeah, I mean, any of these terms, frankly, are fine. I think we should put a poll out. I actually like Hide's mom cluster. I think that's really cool. All right. Anyone else have anything else? Otherwise, we'll wrap up. All right, cool. See y'all in a couple weeks. Daniel, I'll reach out to you on Slack and we can chat about the issue triaging.
Let's do that.
Thank you
All
all.
right.
Thank
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.